Welcome back, mamas. Y'all, I am excited to wrap up this series that we have been in today. We are going to walk through the steps of what it might look like to go from where you are now to where you want to be, to where you're meant to be, to who you are meant to be. And I am excited to take you along that journey today. So let's get to it. Do you wish you had control of your days, that you had a rhythm, but instead feel overwhelmed, scattered, and like there's never enough time? You're in the right place. I'm Danielle, a recovering workaholic, wife, and stay-at-home mom of 2 girls. I've learned how to reclaim my time and find purpose and freedom so I can be present with my kids and feel like myself again. Here, we embrace where we are, but we don't stay there. So if you're ready to trade the chaos for clarity, the guilt for grace, and the endless to-do list for aligned flow, grab the kiddos a snack and toss in that laundry because I know you're multitasking, and let's do this because your time, your purpose, and you matter. Okay, mamas. So here we are at the end of this entire series where we have been talking about all of these things. It started with really where we need to be rooted, right? It started with how we need to be rooted in something. And this for me is God. And I believe it is God for all of us, that we need something to go back to when we are finding our way, when we are doing this mom life. We need something to be able to root in. And when we are doing this work, which it is work, the things that I talk about along the way of getting you to where you want to go, it is work. You are going to have to do some work, but it is all so worth it. But you are going to need something to be rooted in. And I believe that is God, and He will give you the strength. He will give you the power. He will sustain you so that you can do this work, so that you can be the mom that you are meant to be. Okay. And so that is where we started. And if you have not listened to this series, I highly recommend that you go back and walk through it. And then what I'm going to do today is just kind of walk you through what my progression through this look like. And I'll talk about why I do what I do today, right? Like why I am talking to you guys about this and encouraging you through this motherhood journey so that you can avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made and avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I fell into. Okay. So the first thing that we really talked about after I talked about rooting in God was how we can get stuck in autopilot, how we can get stuck in this place where we just feel like we are going through the motions. We don't even really recognize who we are anymore, or we don't even recognize a lot of our behaviors and the way that we are reacting to certain situations. We don't even recognize this person that we are defaulting to at the moment. And I want to tell you that I was stuck in this autopilot mode for a while. I was stuck here for a while. I did not recognize that I was stuck on autopilot. And many of you may not recognize that you're there as well. Or maybe you are starting to recognize now that we're talking about it, that you are there and you are doing some of the things that I did when I was in this place. And, you know, when I decided to stay at home, I decided this after my second child was born. So after my first child was born, I decided I was going to go back to work part-time. And I thankfully had a job that I was able to make that happen. I had a job in sales, and so it was already a little bit flexible, and I was able to talk to the people that had hired me and that I worked with, and we were able to devise a plan where I would be able to work part-time and I would be able to fill a need for them, but would also give me a steady source of income. And that worked really well for me when Gabriella was little. But what I realized was I did not love taking her to daycare. I did not love dropping her off it was daycare, but it was kind of like school. Like it was a really great daycare. I really did like it. And she seemed to really like it, but I didn't love that I was not there. And so when I had my second child, I just decided actually during my maternity leave that I did not want to go back to work. There was no way I wanted to send both of my kids to daycare. When I had started Gabriella in daycare, that was like one of the hardest things to have to do was to start her in daycare when she was just a baby. And I didn't want to have to do that again. with Michaela. I did not want to have to do that again. And so I decided I was staying at home and, neither one of them were going to go back to daycare. And this was what I wanted. And I was confident in my decision. I knew this was what I wanted. And so I made the decision and I did not look back. But what had also happened during my maternity leave was I was asked to be the president of the UK Alumni Association, which I had been a volunteer for and been on the board. But a presidential run is like a 4-year commitment. And so I had agreed to do this. And I was just stepping into that role around the same time that Michaela would have been going to daycare. But I had decided that she wasn't going to anymore. So I took on that role and I was still comfortable doing that. I still wanted to volunteer and be involved. I just wanted to be able to be at home with the kids. And so for me, this was going to work and I was happy and I was at home with my kids and I was raising them and everything seemed to be fine. However, what I didn't realize was something had changed that I wasn't even really aware of until later. So I started kind of putting my happiness and whether or not I was doing a good job into how well my kids were doing, right? So if my kids were having a bad day, then it was a reflection on me and my parenting, right? If my kids were not hitting a milestone or regressing, like for instance, Gabriella, she was potty trained when we had Michaela. But then when we were, changing diapers of Michaela's all the time and everything, all of a sudden, Gabriella must have decided, hey, we're changing the other one's diapers. So I think maybe they will just change mine again. So she kind of regressed and went back to not wanting to be potty trained and wanting to wear her pull-ups and all of this stuff. And I started internalizing that. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, why does she all of a sudden want to, go back to this? Where did I fail? What have I done wrong? I then remember that she started, soccer and she also wanted to start dance and she wound up not liking the dance. And I started to put this pressure on myself to really I had to find what they were going to be good at. And I had to push them to do things that, maybe I wouldn't have if I was working or outside the home or if I had maybe something of my own, because I am a high achiever, right? So I have to always be going, doing. And I always want to be the best at whatever I do. And, and so I was finding that for me, I was kind of taking that on, but now my role was motherhood, right? And so I had to figure this out and I had to be right. And I think it wound up coming out as pressure on my kids that I didn't even know. And so what started to happen was I knew when I would catch myself doing these things, I knew that they weren't right. So then I would try to rein it back in and, not push them into things and not try to make them do things that they didn't want to do. I'm definitely a believer that once you start something, you finish it. So, you sign up for soccer, we're going to play it out. And that's kind of a short season. And both my kids actually liked the soccer, but it was dance that was a whole year long, right? September all the way through May. And they are in this class and she was not liking her teacher. And she said she liked dance. She just was kind of scared. The teacher was yelling at them and things like that. But I didn't really find that out until later when she told me after the fact. And if I would have asked more questions in the moment, instead of trying to, get her excited and push her towards the classes, and instead of really asking what was going on, why did she like dance but really never want to go, things like that. And so for me, it was a lot of pressure that I was putting probably on myself and probably on the kids to, do all of the things. Because since I was staying at home, I was okay, so we have to eat healthy, I have to cook, Gabriella was gluten-free at this point in time because I had found out that she was allergic to wheat. And it's much easier now to be gluten-free. She's now 13. And so back then, she actually outgrew it when she was 5. But back then we would struggle to find things that were gluten-free that she liked, and that weren't completely all sugar and just filled with fillers that, basically made them bad for you, but they made them taste good, right? They do much better with gluten-free products now. But anyway, I put a lot of pressure on myself to do all of the things that I thought that I needed to do to be a good stay-at-home mom. right? I thought that I had to do all of the things with the house and all of the things with the cooking and all of the things with the girls and all of the crafts and all of the activities. And I wanted to get them into once it was time for preschool, I definitely wanted them to get into preschool a few days a week. And I thought that would give me, some time to actually get some things done. But what you figure out is you don't actually get that much done when they're gone for just a few hours, because by the time you get them there, and you get to wherever you're going and you run your errands, it's like basically time to go and get them back. So you really don't get a lot of time for yourself. And so I found that I knew I wanted more, but I didn't know what that looked like. And so what I found that I started to do was just fill my time with things that used to bring me joy. And so when I started to say, okay, I think I just need something for myself because I think I am putting too much pressure on them, or I started to recognize this. And so I started to go back to things that used to bring me joy, right? And I started reading all of these books that are more, like self-improvement type books. Those are the type of books that I love to read. And I started doing the affirmations and all of these things. And so I started to go more towards what I always talk about, right? Like renewing our mind. And I was definitely rooting in God. I was at this point not doing like a morning devotional every morning because I didn't have time for that, but I was doing the Bible app every day and doing their little stories and things like that. And my husband came up with an idea for a business. And I thought, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Actually, I would love that. I would love to start a business. And so I decided I was going to start a business. And so I started working on that a little bit here and there. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to hire somebody to come in and be with Michaela a couple of times a week because Gabriella was at school and in school at this point in time. And at first, the excitement of starting a new business and everything was great. And it gave me something to look forward to. And I was happy and I thought this is exactly what I wanted. And then the business didn't exactly take off the way that I thought it would. And so I kind of had to pivot what it looked like in order to kind of cater to what people wanted versus what, the initial intent was. And I felt like it had taken a direction where it was a little further away from my wheelhouse or where I wanted to be when I started. And so this started stressing me out. And then I had the alumni association and I had the house and I had all of these things going. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of them well. And I started to fall into that trap of, I am not worthy of any of this. Like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, what is going on? I wound up in the hospital when nothing was wrong with me other than the fact that I was overwhelmed and stressed and doing too much. And it was my body running itself down. And God basically came to me during that time and was like, Danielle, this is your wake up call. You need to prune some things out, because I had started to just try to fill that void with things and things that used to bring me joy and weren't exactly bringing me joy anymore. And so that is the trap that we can fall into, right? This whole mom life can be this cycle or this circle if we don't take the time to plan. It's exactly why I do what I do now, because I teach you how to build a foundation. I teach you the importance of, things like affirmations and boundaries, but also planning and taking the time to figure out what you want, to get clear on who you are now that you are a mom. What is your new identity? What does that look like? What are your core values? What are your strengths? These are all things that you once thought you knew, and you probably did know, but now that you're a mom, they're most likely different. They most likely have changed. Your core values may not have completely changed, but the top priorities, the ones that you want to prioritize now, have probably changed drastically. Like fun and adventure may have been some of your top priorities in the past, and those might be still a priority for you, but fun and adventure aren't going to trump like your health and your family probably. Or maybe peace and rest might actually have entered into the equation when in the past you would never have thought that you wanted peace or rest, right? Like that would never have been something that I asked for in the past. But now that I'm in the middle of all of this chaos, I would just really love some peace, right? And so, yes, we have to fill our minds with positive things. And yes, we have to root in God, but also we know that we are going to make mistakes. We know that if we're not careful, we might get stuck in this circle, in this cycle, and caught up in things that used to bring us joy and may bring us joy for a hot minute, but they're not going to bring that lasting joy that we're looking for. They're not going to bring that fulfillment that we're looking for. And we don't understand what is going on or why we keep having these like highs and lows, where we're having these ups and downs, where we're happy for a minute and then all of a sudden we're not happy. And it's not necessarily that the thing that you're doing right now is not something that you would, given that you weren't trying to raise these small children right now, that you wouldn't do otherwise. But we have to evaluate where we are right now. And we have to build that foundation of what we want, what is important to us. And so you can let this guilt creep in. You can let this self-doubt creep in, this, thinking that you need to earn your worthiness and all of these things that we've talked about over the last few weeks. We have gotten deep in depth on them, and they are real things that we all go through that I am not immune to, right? Like just because I have done all of this work, sometimes I fall back into an old pattern, right? But guess what? I recognize it right away now. I usually recognize it either in the moment or right after the moment, and I am able to separate from it and remedy the situation quickly, right? And so it's so important that you do this work that I keep talking about. It's why I'm developing this program that I'm super excited to roll out here soon. It's why I am doing what I am doing now, which is this coaching, this program that I have designed for you to walk through all of these things and have me be right there with you. I want to read a quote, and this is author unknown, but it says, "If I quit now, I will be back to where I started. And when I started, I was desperately wishing to be where I am now." So we need to remember that, because it's okay to be stuck in a rut. It's okay to have started something that you now are looking at and thinking, I am not sure why I started this, or I am not sure why I committed to this, right? This is why I talk a lot about boundaries and where those come in, because sometimes we say yes to all of these things that we didn't take the time to do all this foundational work that I'm talking about. And then we wind up in a place where we are unhappy and we are sacrificing things that are important to us and things that our family really needs from us in order to fulfill these commitments that we thought we could handle, or we thought we wanted, or, we used to be able to do that, right? But just remember, if you decide that you need to stop something, right? I hate the word quit, but if you need to quit something, you aren't going to go back to where you started. You are starting from where you are right now. And right now, no matter what, you have these beautiful children that you're raising, and you are an amazing mom. And so you may have to prune things out, and you may have to not let that guilt creep in, and you may have to keep renewing your mind so that you stay strong and and this is another reason why we have to be rooted in God too, because He knows exactly what you were created for. He knows exactly where you're meant to be, and He also knows who you are. And I gave you a few weeks ago those Bible verses to root in who you are and who He says you are, and not who this world says you are. And so we want to embrace where you are right now, but we don't want to stay there, right? We want to move forward. And I have another quote I want to share with you. And this one is from John Maxwell that says, "Fail forward. The less you venture out, the less your risk of failure. Ironically, the more you risk failure and actually fail, the greater your chance of success." We are all going to fail. We are all going to make mistakes. We are not perfect, and that is completely okay. But just because you've been doing things or trying things or falling back into old patterns doesn't mean that you can't have something more for yourself. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't still push forward towards what you're feeling, right? This calling that you are wanting more for yourself. It just means that you're a lot closer to that success because you have to fail a bunch of times before you can succeed. Usually that's how it works, right? Like people think people become these overnight successes and they have it all figured out. And all of the sudden, when this person becomes successful or famous for whatever, what they don't realize is all the hard work and all the failures that person has had and the mistakes that they've made and the things that they've done wrong before that no one saw. Right? Everyone thought they became an overnight success because they just didn't know who they were before now. But behind the scenes, this person has been working and trying and failing forward, right? And so if you're in this place where you're feeling stuck or you're feeling unfulfilled and unhappy for whatever reason, I want to tell you, first of all, you're not alone and we've all been there. But you don't have to stay there and you are not broken. There is not something wrong with you. You don't need to stay in this place. You can do this work. Listen to the podcasts in the past, like yes, this past series, but also all of the podcasts that I do. They speak to a lot of the things that we do in my program that will be rolling out and also what we do in my coaching. I don't want you to have to make any more mistakes, right? I don't want you to have to go through all of the, let's just say, pain and suffering that I did, right? Like it was painful and hard. And I wish I knew then what I know now type of a thing, which is why I do what I do, right? So that you don't have to go through all of that. So that if you are sitting there in any of these stages of autopilot, in any of these stages of feeling, less than or like a failure or like you want more and you're stuck and feeling broken and like you don't know where to turn, I am here to tell you that I have the tools to move you forward quickly. I have the tools to help take you from where you are right now to where you want to go. And I also have a free resource on my website that will help you, that you can go and get on my website, prioritizewithpurpose.com, prioritizewithpurpose.com. I think it's under free resources. I think you can also find it on the homepage. But I asked you on Tuesday, if you had a picture of that mom that you're becoming, the one that you believe that you're meant to be. And I honestly don't know myself if I could have pictured her. There were times when I probably could have, and then there were times where I couldn't picture how I was even going to get out of bed in the morning, right? I was stuck. And I don't want you to be stuck. I don't want you to let guilt or shame or fear or this self-doubt or this feeling that you're not worth pursuing more for yourself get in the way of that mom that you're meant to be. And once you decide you're willing to do the work, because like I said, it is going to be a bit of work to do this, to figure out those foundational things that you need to know to get you to where you want to go, then you're going to be able to see her. Then you're going to be able to be present in your moments, be fulfilled and be content with where you are right now while you are becoming her. And you may be surprised that you don't have to arrive at the destination or the place where you feel like is your final destination, where what I would call your true north. You don't have to arrive there to be all of those things and to feel that joy and that fulfillment and to be living with purpose. And I want that so much for you. And hopefully this little glimpse into my rocky path has maybe been relatable, has provided maybe some hope that you can do this too, because everybody's path is going to look different. I just want to help you get to that path quicker. And so go to prioritizewithpurpose.com, prioritizewithpurpose.com. You can download that free resource. You can sign up for a clarity call with me. I am not positive when I'm going to be rolling the program out yet, but it will be coming soon. And I will meet you right back here next week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, Mama. If so, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and then hit share and send this to a mom who needs this in her day. I'll meet you right back here next week. Keep smiling, y'all.